Rad Fae 48, Episode 14, Chapters 14 and 15. First Steps and Introducing Beanie. Hello, social media mites and mavens. James Homan here. While most readers may never have to go through such an ordeal, should you find yourself managing the care of a loved one, you'll find that the palliative care staff at any hospital will be more than willing to advise in managing care at home, especially if that care will have to be extended over a period of more than a few weeks. Coordinating with the patient's medical health care center, visiting nurses were scheduled to visit Harold for occupational as well as physical therapies. Our home required several readjustments, the installation of bathroom bars to enable easier entry into and out of the shower, the stapling down of throw rug edges to reduce the chances of tripping, widening walkways to accommodate a wheelchair, etc. All the nurses were great in helping me to organize the various medications needed throughout one day. Because I had to work 5 days a week, a visiting nurse was assigned from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Harold's first male nurse was wonderful, taking him to Central Park when possible. Following this shift at 1 o'clock, various friends freely volunteered to sit with Harold until I could get home somewhere between 3 and 4 p.m. Each friend in the second shift would specialize their visits by choosing a particular subject, which Harold found interesting: music, opera, theater, and one friend memorably selected rather obscure and lascivious selections of 18th and 19th century pornography with which to regale our patient. Arriving home from work, I would find Mr. Bear in various stages of positivity, sometimes hilarity. The beginning of Harold's convalescence was wonderfully diverse. He remained genuinely grateful for all those who participated in his home care. Alas, though, he missed his furry friend, Tramp, which segues nicely into our adopting a second Bowser. As per Harold's orders, this dog had to be as different from Tramp as possible. A 13-pound substandard female West Highland Terrier we later named Beanie was about as different as I could find. Beanie was convalescing herself from a terrible treatment by an owner who had abandoned her at a Long Island dog pet grooming parlor. Small but mighty was this little beastie, who recognized that Harold required attention, which she provided admirably. First steps and introducing Beanie. Our apartment needed adjustment before Harold came home from the hospital. Shower bars were installed. An additional step-in handle was attached to the bathtub he showered in daily. Non-stick strips were applied to the bottom of the bathtub. Edges of all rugs were stapled down. Liquid soap replaced his favorite bar soap. Hot and cold cups with lids were purchased to lessen the possibility of accidents. And we made the major decision, at least for me, to switch sides in the bed, to place his weakest side toward the middle. Change requires compromise. Mount Sinai Palliative Care scheduled home care workers who would come to our apartment between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., 5 days a week, and stay with Harold for about 4 hours a day until the allotted number of days were met according to his insurance. I was at work from 8:30 a.m. until about 3 p.m. Friends and family members volunteered to stay with Harold in the afternoon until I got home for his 5 p.m. or his 4 p.m. medications. In addition to both a visiting physical and occupational therapist, we were assigned a visiting nurse, Eduardo Rivera, who looked good enough to have been starring in one of those television novellas, 6'2" tall, with snake hips and about a 48-inch chest, with bulging biceps that thankfully did not block the blood to his brain. Nurse Rivera was so good looking that it was difficult for me to look him in the eye while conversing, because I thought he would read my libidinous thoughts. He and Harold developed a wonderful rapport. Harold loved his radiation treatments as well, to which Nurse Rivera would take him daily, and he began feeling proactive in combating this tumor. Fortunately, he tolerated all 33 treatments of radiation. Most of his hair fell out by the end of April, when I shaved the few wisps left on his head. He was now completely bald and bearded, but maintained a great attitude. After he completed radiation, the second set of MRIs was scheduled for June 10th to determine the efficacy of the treatments. These confirmed that approximately 90 to 95% of Harold's tumor had been destroyed with radiation, but the mass, including the necrotic tissue or dead tissue, was now almost 5 centimeters in diameter. As many as 36 medications were dispensed 4 times a day. While his pills were fairly effective in controlling seizure activity, he was not to be left unsupervised because his walking wasn't that secure. His weight began to increase alarmingly fast as a result of the meds. At home, we delved into research, trying to learn as much as possible about GBMs and other cases that might be similar to Harold. The internet was our major source of information. Harold's cousin, Dr. Leslie Raffel, was on staff at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles and actually knew Dr. Philip Black, the foremost brain tumor guru in this country. Copies of Harold's MRIs and operative reports were sent to Dr. Black for his evaluation and recommendations. Communication, which had always been the foundation of our relationship, would now take center stage in Harold's final journey. We discussed the issue of what exactly he wanted others to know. He decided that if anyone was interested enough to be asking questions, they deserved to know as much information as we knew at the time. His 100-year-old great-aunt Gertrude was told, as were his cousin's youngest children and Harold's goddaughter Lily, who is going to be 8 years old. No one goes through anything such as this alone. Old friends, some of whom I hadn't seen in over 30 years, and some of Harold's high school friends, whom I'd never met, began emailing their concerns and contributing their positive energy. We were exceedingly fortunate to find ourselves surrounded by an enormous amount of love and genuine concern. Brief visits by friends and family were scheduled daily. While he was fairly weak, he looked forward to seeing everyone. At the end of June, we had planned to visit my family in Wisconsin for a long weekend to celebrate my mother's 82nd birthday and have a small reunion with several hometown friends. The Thursday before we were to fly there, we had an appointment with Dr. Michael Gruber, neuro-oncologist at New York University Medical Center, to learn more about the carboplatinum and thalidomide clinical test he was conducting. From our online research, this seemed to be the most promising strategy available. Dr. Gruber spent 10 minutes with us and sent us promptly to consult his associate, Dr. Patrick Kelly, who presented us with a harsher reality after reviewing the MRIs we'd brought. If you don't have this tumor debulked or reduced in size within the week, you'll be dead by October, he advised. This was a much more aggressive philosophy than that expressed by our doctors at Mount Sinai. He explained that the mass, now approximately 2 inches, would create cranial pressure that was certain to cause seizure activity. That afternoon, we canceled our vacation plans. I called Dr. Post's office, hoping to get his opinion of Dr. Kelly's pronouncement The doctor was scheduled for surgery throughout the morning, but said he would see us on Friday morning in his office. On Friday, after examining both sets of MRIs, Dr. Post agreed that action to debulk this cranial mass needed to be taken sooner than later. Harold's sister and I both felt more comfortable remaining at Mount Sinai with Dr. Post for this second surgery rather than having it done at NYU Medical Center by Dr. Gruber's team. Harold agreed, and the debulking was performed on July 13th, again with unpredictable results. Following surgery, Dr. Germano modestly explained that 100% of what they had hoped to remove had been removed, while Harold would again experience partial paralysis on his right side. Some of his strength could be expected to return, and the success of the operation certainly guaranteed Harold more time. Now came the hardest part, waiting and facing his mortality. Since Tramp had died the previous Thanksgiving, I insisted on getting another dog to accompany, if not entertain, Harold while he sat at home. I explained to him that I'd found a 10-year-old, 13-pound female West Highland Terrier on Long Island via the internet. Her name was Bonnie. We later renamed her to Beanie because she looked like a Beanie Bear baby. To meet this little beastie, I arranged for Harold and me to take a train to Dix Hills, New York, where we were introduced. She could not have been more unlike our beloved Tramp. This tiny bundle was a highly allergic beastie who specifically ate Eukanuba salmon and potato dog food. When we got her home, Beanie was reticent to acclimate and found all too much of Tramp's scent in and around the apartment. While West Highland Terriers were said to possess a tail that stood up prominently, not unlike an exclamation mark, we rarely saw her tail. Her posterior appendage had been cautiously tucked under her for so long that it took weeks before that little tail was seen in all its alertness. When we saw it finally standing erect as she slept on her back with her legs in the air, we realized she was finally trusting her new surroundings. Beanie came with a story. She had been abandoned at a grooming salon by a previous owner who had given a false name and false phone numbers. An American Kennel Club rescuer on Long Island, who raises and shows Westies, had heard of Beanie's abandonment while standing in a checkout line in a small grocery store. The cashier had related a story of the little white terrier that she had seen at her groomer's. Apparently, the poor little creature had had a severe reaction to whatever food she was being given at the groomer's. West Highlands are the most prone to allergies of all breeds, and was almost completely covered with blackened blisters. Upon hearing of the dog's plight, the rescuer went straight from the store to the salon, took the little orphan, and nursed her back to health. Beanie always sat dutifully on Harold's left side when he sat on the sofa, and she placed her chin on his left thigh. She also found a comfortable spot between his legs in bed, to which neither of us was accustomed. Since she was so tiny, I kept tripping over her. While she never learned to vacuum, she helped in other ways. She actually became quite protective of Papa Bear, and they grew greatly attached to each other. She loved riding on his lap in the wheelchair, and for the pre-Christmas season, I began thinking of attaching a red nose and antlers, but then doubted her little head could sustain the costume. Attending to our new pet was an adjustment, and also something of a diversion, but one loaded with love and affection. And that concludes this podcast. Please check in next week for episode 15, A New Career Caregiver. As mentioned earlier, change happens. We dealt with what happened to the best of our abilities. being graced with such a lovable bundle of furry energy a second time was kind of a validation. Perhaps things weren't as bleak as they seemed. Our newest little family member became fond of tuna steak and potatoes, refusing canned tuna like the little Long Island snob she was. Having worked for many years as an executive assistant for many international chairmen, I had learned to give good care. Perhaps the care I could afford Mr. Bear would also make a difference. Perhaps that is simply what all caregivers think. This performance was just beginning. Thank you for your time and interest. Again, until next week, then be good, be kind, be happy, and love one another, remembering to coexist with tolerance while embracing similarities and respecting differences. Thank you.